My name's Euan Davis. We are the world's best kept secret. Once you understand who we are and what we do, it's quite interesting to see, just how many large clients we work with and just how much business we do. So we've got this tiny logo here. I'm not surprised. We're the world's best kept secret. Our logo is small. We don't spend massively on marketing. There is a reason about that. We want our ideas to really help you punch above your weight. So I run the Center for the Future of Work. It's a leadership, I guess you could call it a thought leadership function. It's designed to challenge you, but also challenge ourselves to think a little bit differently about how the future of work will look like. So who's Cognizant? Well, Cognizant is 12 billion in revenue. I have to do this, 12 billion in revenue. We are a technology company. We do strategy work. We do data analytics. We build platforms. We help clients figure out change. We have a venture capital arm. We do awful lot of stuff, but not many people know who we are. So I hope what I present to you today will intrigue you a little bit more to understand who Cognizant is, and perhaps come and visit us at our booth upstairs as well. So last year I stood on this stage and gave you a vision about talent and what the future of talent will look like. What we've been working on in the last 6 months is around leadership, so how you actually enable leadership to lead in what we think is a profound shift in how organizations generate value. And leadership has been getting a lot of attention recently. Last year, one of the most standout presentations for me was the two folks from Uber and from Daimler. You had Travis Kalanick, the CEO of Uber, the young Turk about digital, and you had the wise old sage Dieter Zetsche from Daimler, and they provided a really compelling vision of how their companies would come together and thrive in an era of connected car. And I thought it was a very interesting display of what leaders need to do. But poor Travis, or depending on your view, he's had such a terrible time of late because he's been thrown off or thrown out of Uber. And you'll hear a lot about leadership, and his leadership style was just wrong for what Uber needed to do. And I think a lot of companies are actually struggling with the concept of leadership today. And to provide some context, I think this lady really does have a fascinating quote to give you some context on why this whole shift is so important. So Mrs. Merkel has a fantastic stat that she likes to trot out at meetings. She talks about Europe. She says Europe has 7% of the world's population, 25% of GDP, yet how much is Europe's welfare bill? It's a whopping 50%. So if you think about that, if you think about what Europe needs to do in the future, some of these startups that you've been listening to over the last couple of days are absolutely going to be in the mix. How we feed ourselves, how we educate ourselves, how we medicate ourselves. People will look back and say, did you really do healthcare this way? Didn't you really understand some of the data that my personal Fitbit was telling you? Didn't you understand exactly what I needed to learn when I was at school? Some of the big questions on how we put together businesses or industries are beginning to change. And it's down to leaders to make sure we get the right qualities in place. So Europe is under tremendous pressure. If you think about where we are, the US has software, Asia has hardware. What do we have? Well, I would argue we have innovation, and we have it in spades. So you look around this continent, if you look up to the Nordics with the cashless society in Sweden, they've actually mandated there'll be no more cash at the end of this year. You won't be able to use your krona, unfortunately. Here we have manufacturing 4.0. The UK has a lot of work around artificial intelligence. In Vegas, in the consumer electronics world, the French absolutely dominate that space. There's some very interesting innovation dynamics happening here in this part of the world. So I would argue we just need to understand how to lead the change. And I think we get what's happening. We did a piece of research last year. We interviewed 2,000 executives. 2,000, it cost a lot of money. Trust me, my budget was hammered. But I wanted to understand exactly what the business guy, not the tech guy, but what the business guy was saying. I wanted to understand which forces were going to reshape his world, her world. And the top three are all technology related. That, for me, is fascinating. Business analytics, meaning making, data, this is all about digital economy, about understanding data flows. Artificial intelligence, 98% said artificial intelligence, that has gone into the mainstream psyche. Leaders understand this is going to change their world. And cloud, which I thought was a little bit odd, but hey, this is what the data said. So, we get that, but you have to ask yourselves, do our leaders really understand it? Because I would say we're at this big moment where many of our finest and grandest leaders are scratching their heads, or I think to call it the German, the Kopfratz, because they don't really get how this is going to change their organizations and what they need to do to persuade. I won't tell you what I think about Theresa May, but look at some of the other names on there. Like him or loathe him, you could argue Donald Trump knows how to communicate better than any other statesman in history, to the detriment of the US, but he's started to really use those technologies in a rather scary way. So, as part of that research, I also wanted to understand what did people lower down in the organization think of their organization. And what was really quite scary was this. We don't have a clear digital strategy. We're moving too slowly. A massive 34% said they had the wrong leadership in place. Think about that in your company where you work. Do you think those at the top really understand how big a shift this is? Do they need to come somewhere like this to understand what they need to do to change? Do they need to make their styles more open and collaborative, a bit like Dieter Zetsch at Daimler? Or can they just carry on blindly saying, this is how we work, this is how work moves? So, don't fret, but I think we have the answer. We've just published this, I'd say, 2 weeks ago. It's called Relearning Leadership in the Second Machine Age. We think it's a big deal, and we think it's something every single leader needs to read, because it provides 3 clear imperatives for organizations to follow. And the first imperative is this: platform. Now, there's a lot of misunderstanding of what a platform is, but in my mind, quite simply, it's a layer of software. It collects data, and it allows you to share the data with others and co-create something magical. To understand the platform, it's probably easy to understand the one we all use, LinkedIn. I bet most of you got LinkedIn accounts, but LinkedIn is probably the simplest platform to understand. It captures data about you, where you work, and what you might want to do. Spotify captures data about what you like to listen to and where you might like to listen to it. Netflix understands your TV. So yeah, we get this. We know what a platform is. It's layers of software. But these platforms are starting to move into the physical world. BMW's connected car, for instance, is a platform, layers of software that capture data about you and how you like to drive and what you like to listen to when you drive and how well you might actually get your insurance premium if you shared your data with BMW. So the old world is beginning to catch up to the world of platforms and building these virtual machines around products, processes, services. So platforms are really going to change how value is created. And it's no surprise to me that BMW needs 5,000 data scientists down in Munich. So good luck, because I understand there's only about 100 so far in Munich. So to get 5,000 of them, how is BMW going to grow its platform? How is it going to generate value from the data that's flying into its business about its drivers, about its cars, about its dealers? This is what a platform can do. And once you understand the concept of a platform and make it open, so startups can plug in through APIs, simple lines of code, to more complex apps, then you can build what is grandly called an ecosystem of value, an innovation ecosystem. I have to say, I hate the word ecosystem, but there's just no other way to describe it. So platforms, I would argue, are perhaps one of the most important concepts for a leader in a company to grasp. Build it, buy it, partner it, but understand that you need to organize work around them to generate value in the future. The second one is innovation. We know this. We have to innovate much more quickly than we have before. And last year, I gave you a vision of people and talent, and I said it's going to come down to how you think about power and decisions and where power sits within your company. So if you think about power, is it the budget you hold? Is it the people you manage? Is it the influence you have? But power needs to move to the edge of the organization where that innovation is happening. So what we did at Cognizant was open an office or open a digital play space in a WeWork because we felt that's where talent, or the next generation of talent, wanted to be. So you have to think, is your organization ready to maybe fragment and reconstitute itself in different places, in different areas? There's some very interesting things happening in Europe right now. There's all sorts of talent beginning to bubble up around. So in my country, Dundee has become a center for interactive gaming. In Amsterdam, there's a center for design. In Spain, they are way ahead on IoT technologies and security, way ahead than, they're world class. So you have to ask, is your company able to delve into some of those talent clusters and bring in some of that capability into your organization? And the third one is extending customer value. And that sounds obvious, but trust me, a lot of people forget the human aspects of technology decision making. And we've done quite a lot of work within Cognizant building up our company to bring some of those human insights into business model innovation. So understanding what's driving people has helped us really change some of the conversations in some of our largest clients. And it really is important to understand what's going to drive customers in the future before you go ahead and begin investing in technology where it might not actually have leverage. So the role of the leader has never been more challenging. We know this, you know this, but we think there are three clear imperatives are emerging. Those three new roles are around platforms, hyperscale innovation, and really understanding customer value. And in that particular report, there is a blueprint that describes what the modern leader needs to do. So I hope I've intrigued you to come and learn more about Cognizant. I invite you to come to our booth and pick up this report, but also pick up some of the other research we've done. And I'd like to say a big thank you for your time and attention. Thank you.